Hi, everyone. This is Brenda Stone, the Director of Operations at Family First Federal Credit Union. As part of our fraud series, I brought in a subject matter expert in the world of fraud. With us today, I have Joe Acor, who is our Electronic Services Manager at Family First Federal Credit Union. Joe and his team deal with fraud and scams day in and day out. So, welcome, Joe.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Excited to talk about fraud. Something that my team, as you know, deals with every day. Different types of thing, different levels to what's entailed in the fraud, and kind of a lot of different scenarios play out to different conclusions every time.
One of the things I wanted us to kind of touch base on is the psychology around fraud. A lot of people always think, how the heck did they fall for something like that? What, how could they?
Right.
What it, wouldn't they have seen or noticed any red flags?
Right.
So, you and I obviously have worked side by side for several years. Can we talk about some of the scenarios that we see and what makes you think people
Yeah.
fall for fraud?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been working with fraud directly for probably 7 to 8 years. It used to be starting out, obviously there was scams involved as well, but it would be like kind of bad luck, wrong place, wrong time. Like you put your card in a gas pump that had a skimmer on it. No good for you. You obviously, but now it's very elaborate. People that are very intelligent get scammed just because they'll have a lapse of judgment for like 5 minutes, and then they'll have that come to moment like, "Oh, no." And that's when usually we'll get involved.
I think part of the piece that can be so heartbreaking is the romance scams, right?
Right,
And, in a world where post-COVID people are, learning how to try and date, finding a place to date,
right,
and especially elderly people who
mhm,
maybe have lost someone that they love.
right.
Um, we see that probably on a weekly basis, unfortunately. Um, some of them are people that, they've met online. And tell me a little bit about what you're seeing and what we're seeing. Like, what makes you think people are more susceptible to believe someone that they've met online and
I think that people in general are, just wanting the connection, so if they don't have a connection in their day-to-day life, in real life, they're more susceptible to believing that something is too good to be true is, unfortunately true. So they'll think that somebody that in their typical life is not necessarily following them, like a model looking person, something like that is, and then they'll kind of get swept up under it. And, when we start asking those prying questions like, hey, have you ever had like a conversation on the phone? Have you ever saw this person in person? That's always no. And they'll have excuses as to why, they can't meet to have that, um, the face to face conversation. Oh, I can't because of this. I can't because of this. And it's always an excuse. And it's always, so like sometimes the hardest part about the romance scam is convincing them that it's in fact a scam because nobody wants to admit they were duped.
right, right. And they've invested so much time. I mean,
Right.
we talk about how much time some people will be talking to someone online.
Right.
We've seen members talk to someone for years, and then all of a
Right.
sudden, someone will say, oh, they'll all of a sudden start asking for money or gift cards. And
Right.
I really want to come meet with you, but I can't. But if you send me this $500 gift card, that would help me pay for my flight. And
Right. And
in the moment, they're just so in love with this person and
right.
how much this person loves them or they think they
And it's
love
always
them.
something where they are asking for $10,000 the first day this happens. It's something where they're like, "Hey, could you give me $30 for this?" And, if you think you're in a relationship with someone, $30 typically isn't going to be a, "Oh, sure. Yeah, no
Right.
problem." Right? And then, all of a sudden it's more and more money, and then it's snowballed to the person eventually is, "What am I doing? What am I doing?" Hopefully, right?
Right.
It's a difficult thing to, definitely nobody wants to admit they were wrong about a situation. So, and even when you do have that conversation, you've had situations where people have thought that they were in a relationship and it was a serious relationship, and they had confessed their undying love to this person that they've never met in real life.
Right. And
Um,
I think with AI a little bit more prevalent in the
mhm,
fraud and scam world, we've seen people who truly believe they're dating a superstar,
right,
right? And they show them a video and, or they come in and show us the video. See,
right,
this person is real. It is him. And then we have to scope the internet to find the video of an interview on, the Today Show or Extra, where we can see that they used AI to just manipulate this person into giving them more money or
right.
believing that they really are in a relationship with this famous person.
Right, a lot of times it's not even the same sex, nothing about, they think they're speaking to a woman, it's a man, in reality, and there's just no convincing them sometimes that that's not the case, which is,
Sure.
tough to hear, truthfully. A lot of the times you really have to pry and pry and pry, and then doesn't necessarily seem like, sometimes that falls on deaf ears, right?
Yeah, because I think there's that whole psychological level of embarrassment, right?
Right.
Because here I am, just, we're people who deal with fraud and we see it daily, so we can spot it a mile away. But for someone who's been living it for so long, they just don't want to think that they're wrong, right?
Right.
They don't want to think or be embarrassed. And how many times have we had conversations with people and we've seen them break down and cry and, they're just so embarrassed and like, I should have known, I should have caught it, but it's all about how these people are trained
Right.
professionals in some level, they are trained to be able to manipulate
Right,
people,
and like,
unfortunately.
whenever I've feel like we've had this conversation a million times, I always feel like as we're getting better at deciding, something's fraudulent and getting quicker, whether it's through machine learning, something like that, it's just the people who do fraud are also getting better at it too. So as we kind of stamp out something, they're getting better at something else that
Right.
we aren't prepared for, unfortunately. So we're kind of in a reactive role, whereas it'd be nice to be in a proactive, but you just don't know what's next, really.
100%. Um, let's talk a little bit about the urgency tactics. So we see that happen frequently in all types of
Mhm.
scams, whether it's a romance scam, whether it's the text messaging scams, the oh, you just had an Amazon purchase coming through your account. Click this link if it
Right.
was you. I mean, we all use Amazon probably more than most of us would like to admit.
Sure.
Admit, unfortunately.
Sure.
Um, but, Amazon's not gonna say to you, "Hey, there's a $1,000 purchase coming through." Amazon's gonna charge you and you're gonna get the merchandise, and if it's not something,
Right.
tell me a little bit about the urgency tactics that you're seeing more frequently.
Yeah, so exactly what you said, like it'll be something that most tech companies aren't going to reach out to you via text message in a separate. They'd reach out via email through a controlled channel, and it's typically not going to be saying that, hey, you had fraud, blah blah blah. And also, I mean, a big thing is we'll get those text messages and we'll be able to review them, and because we are in the same sense of urgency, we're able to see it won't be the exact like Amazon.com, it'll be from a Gmail
Sure.
or a different email service. And like quite obviously it's fraud, but the people are really believe that they're being they think they're being scammed, like, hey, you bought this laptop on Amazon, press this button to stop it. Well, I don't want $1,000 to clear out of my account,
Right.
times are
Who
tough.
does? Sure.
So, I'd let me respond to this message, and then once you do that, you're kind of verifying the information they're claiming to have, which is and then before you realize it, unfortunately, it's, something that, you can't give that information back once you've given it out, it's
Right.
gone.
And we had that, we've had several scenarios like that where they've said, "Oh, I don't want this." One of them, I think, if I remember, was like an iPhone or something.
Right.
Well, I don't want to be charged for this iPhone. I don't need an iPhone. So they click on the link,
Mhm.
and then someone from Amazon calls them, and then they're saying, "Hey, log into your Amazon account and then download this, app." There's so many different
Right.
apps. I think the biggest thing we always tell people is, don't click on links. don't let anyone take control of your computer or your
Right.
phone, because it just creates a more of a havoc for you because you now have to have your computer and your phone cleaned because you gave access to someone who
R
shouldn't have it.
right, and I mean, I always try to tell people, like, make sure that if you are clicking on a link, this is a link you were expecting to receive. Like Amazon's not going to text you out of the blue. Not to just pick on Amazon, any large institution is not going to text you out of the blue. That how would they say that your card was compromised, then also have your phone number if you didn't order something? It doesn't make much sense.
Right.
And also to make sure that, like, if you do get a text message about whatever vendor and go to that vendor directly, don't follow the link that you're provided. Go to that vendor directly. If you have an Amazon account, you should know exactly how to sign into your Amazon account.
Right. Right.
Um,
But it's not, I mean, we use Amazon as an
yeah,
example
just
because
because
we see that,
large,
but
right?
it's, there's all sorts of
Mhm.
retailers and phone service providers. I mean, we're seeing it from, you know, uh, Apple Pay, right?
Right,
Oh, stop these Apple charges.
right.
I think we see people who have Samsung who get stop these Apple charges. If you have a Samsung, you won't have Apple Pay.
Right, and that's
But
the type of thing that if you
it's
just
weird.
stop for a second, take a beat, you're never gonna be like, "Oh, why am I being charged for Amazon if I do have a Samsung," or not Amazon, Apple. If I do have a Samsung device, that doesn't make much sense, but because they're under the pressure to reply immediately, people do things without thinking, don't think the whole situation through before they, click it because 'cause you're thinking, a lot of people aren't as tech savvy, aren't aware of the scam. So
Mhm.
you're clicking it thinking, oh, what's the worst that can happen? I'm going to stop this payment from happening, not realizing that that could actually open a much larger box of,
100%.
unfortunately.
I wanted to talk about today are the authority impersonation. We hear a lot about them. We've seen a lot about it in the news. Can you tell me about some of those types of scams that are happening that you're seeing?
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of crazy. They can impersonate the most local law enforcement, and then they can impersonate FBI agents as well. It's kind of the same thing. Like, there's a lot of urgency involved with it as well. People will be told, you need to pay, you owe this money for a fine. Every now and again, I get or get a text message from Easy Pass that says, hey, you owe this money for Easy Pass. And it's like, I haven't been on the throughway, but that's again following a link that's, typically a malicious link. But yeah, we see all sorts of things from, people will say they got a message from law enforcement that they need to, send $200 via Apple gift card to this to pay off, debt, a fine they owe, court fee, something like that. And the people do it because they don't want the hassle, and then we're left with the FBI ones. You could probably speak to that better than I could, honestly.
So a lot of what I have seen, with someone impersonating an FBI or the FTC agents is, it tends to target um, elderly people, and they tend to target elderly adults. You and I both know because of the generational wealthness,
Right.
right? So what they're doing is they're telling those people that their social security number has been compromised and that their bank account is compromised. Just things of that nature that worries elderly folks. I mean,
Mhm.
it's going to worry anyone, but
Right.
they prey on the urgency and the lack of maybe someone in an elderly capacity, not really surfing the internet all the time to
Right.
see, what the scams are or even really know about them. If they're watching, their TV shows and they're having dinner with their spouse or whatever, if you're not living scams every day like we are, I think it's hard to know all of them that are out there.
Right.
So we we always try to just say pause. The FBI is never going to pick up the phone and call you.
Right.
The FTC is certainly not going to call you. If your social security number, if someone's telling your social security number is compromised, you're never going to get issued a new one. So
Right.
there's warnings and alerts that you can put on your social security number. But those types of compromises where they're telling people that they need to opening that they've opened a new bank account on their behalf and they need to wire the money out, or they need to, the couriers, that's a big one,
Right.
right? Wrap
Come
the
to your
money
house
in
and wrap
yeah,
it
wrap
in
the money in tin
tinfoil.
foil,
Yeah.
and we'll send a courier to pick it up, and we'll get this deposited into your
Yeah.
account. Um, those are the things that people are so trusting because they value their Social Security number and they value their name as anybody would,
Right.
right? So they just wanna fix it and they wanna get it resolved immediately. But, the biggest thing that we try to do is educate, right?
Sure.
The FBI is not gonna call you.
Right.
The IRS is not gonna tell you that you have overdue taxes, but buy gift cards.
Yeah.
And those are some of the I wanna talk about this for a minute, like, the red flags. If someone is reaching out to you regarding, tickets or fines or, fraud, what are some red flags that you would tell someone, "You hear this, stop right away and talk to a trusted family member, talk to your bank." Like, we
Right.
always say, "Call us."
Right. I think that's an important thing for people to do. Like that's the number one thing you can protect yourself, whether it's a spouse, sibling, friend, doesn't matter. Somebody at the bank, it really doesn't matter. And whether you bank at Family First, elsewhere, I mean, you should bank at Family First, but you know, you should have somebody that you trust that can answer questions for you, even if you want to run something by. Like, unfortunately, I've had family members involved in scams, and after the fact, they would have a conversation with me about like, "Oh, duh, of course I knew it was a scam after the fact," but it's like you couldn't have called me during that. Like they,
Right.
take a few minutes to call me during that. Um, but unfortunately, it's something that you don't think about it at the time. It's always the, "Oh, no," type moment. It's never the
Never proactive, right?
right,
It's always reactive.
right.
And I think if that's the biggest message that we can tell people is to pause, take a breath.
Mhm.
If someone's creating a sense of urgency, if someone's telling you, you you have to buy gift cards or you have to send money Western Union, um, other red flags, if they're telling you that, you need to go do a cash withdrawal, but they're telling you you have to lie to your bank as to what you need the cash for.
Right,
Any of those deceptive practices, we always wanna say pause. Like,
right.
say something.
And you might think that there's probably been times, like, maybe in your life that you didn't think that your bank was 100%, like, on your side, right? It might have been a small disagreement, but in general, when you've had a relationship with the same institution over and over again, you should feel safe that if you trust them with your money, you should feel safe with the, advice they're giving you about, money-related things. It's a tough thing to get through somebody's head because, not a lot of people care about fraud until it happens to them.
Sure.
So it's just a difficult thing to, kind of convey to the general public of what's important and what's not. Uh
And I think it's so hard because we live
mhm,
abroad
right.
7 days a week, right?
Right.
It's not stopping because we're not there.
Right.
It's still happening, we still have to figure it out, we still have to fix it, but the bigger piece of that is we have to help our members,
Mhm,
right? I think when someone has lost money, for us, that's the hardest conversation to have, to
right.
say, "You bought the gift card, I can't get you your money back, your card was present during this
Right.
transaction." Like, those are the difficult conversations that we have to have when someone's already in a bad place, right? Like,
Sure.
we've already discovered, "Okay, this person that I've been talking to for 2 years doesn't love me,"
Yeah,
right?
and
They're taking my money.
we've talked to the people that, they were retired, living on a fixed income. And then, you obviously have a amount of money in your bank account that you expect to, you're kind of going to live off, that sort of thing. And that money's gone because you fell down the rabbit hole of something you believed to be true, which in fact it wasn't. Whereas if you had a conversation, it really doesn't matter. A lot of people can give you good advice, whether they deal with fraud or not. It's just taking the second to ask the questions. Um, But yeah, the sense of urgency is definitely a large flag just from our vantage point of being a financial institution, and dealing with fraud on we'll also reach out to members regarding transactions that happen on, an account. We may be questioning something that happened, a pattern that we recognized. And if somebody says, "Hey, I can't talk now," I don't say, "Hey, you need to talk to me right now." You know what I mean? We'll just say, "Okay, give us a call back when you can, but we do need to have a conversation." It's not a "we need to have this conversation now" type thing, and you're gonna stay on the phone.
And I think the hardest part about that is for us, it's urgent. For them, it may not be until it is,
Right.
right? And for us, me especially, and you know this,
Mhm.
I'm always like, we got to stop it. We got to stop it. And I don't understand why, they're not believing us or
Sure.
giving me, ultimately, it's their money,
Right.
right? So if we have a member who or a customer, however, wherever you bank, whether you're a credit union where you're members or a bank where you're customers, we can only do so much, right?
Right, you can tell them the sky's blue, but if they believe it's green, unfortunately.
Can we talk a lot about elderly victims, but we haven't talked yet about the younger victim. Can you tell me some of the scams? I know, like, there's the job scams,
Yeah.
obviously. Can you tell me some of the other ones, or can we talk about the job scams?
Yeah, so the job scam a lot of times we'll see, and it's somebody who's graduated with a bachelor's degree, and they're looking to start out, in their career. And unfortunately, when you have a bachelor's degree, it doesn't necessarily you're gonna mean you're gonna start out making, unfortunately, it's like an entry level job sometimes. So desperation does sink in sometimes, and
Those student loans are coming due,
yeah,
ready or not.
right. Whether you have a good job or not, unfortunately, it's you have to pay them. So, as time goes on, and they might not necessarily be able to get a job in their field right away, or they have a kid, they need to provide for that kid. They'll see an ad on, Indeed, Facebook. That's hey, you can make I don't know 2,500, $3,000 very quickly. You just have to send some money to get started for your training. And Yeah, the training never comes, you're just sending them that money and you're just further in the hole, unfortunately, than you ever were prior to that for simply answering something that you think is going to get you some money in your pocket.
Sure. I mean, one of the things that we see frequently is where they responded to an ad on Indeed and they're going to be someone's assistant or someone's going to be, they're going to be working from home. So they're going to mail them a check
Right.
and then they have to send a portion of that check back.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that. Or we can talk about it
Yeah.
together because I know I see this a lot.
Yeah, so the checks typically will be payable from something like Brenda's Beauty Studio in California, and, it's payable and you think you're doing, road construction work, for example, or something to that effect that's totally not. And then, you cash the check, through mobile deposit typically it's typically already stamped that's for mobile deposit. And then you're supposed to send and then by the time you send the portion of the funds that are available, that check has gone bad. We have to retract it, and then, of course, you would owe the financial institution that money, unfortunately. So, again, you're just further down the hole um, of how much money you have, unfortunately.
One of the scams that kinda hit home in my house, because I do have a college student,
Mhm.
um, she got an email to her school email account, and it was from someone who said he's from an alumni of the school and that he's looking for a personal assistant, and, if she was interested in the job, he'd be mailing her money, and she would just make donations on his behalf to other organizations, and then, if there was money left over, which there would be, that would be her salary for the week, and he'd be making small nominal donations.
Mhm.
Um she read it to me and she was obviously looking for a job that she can
Right.
do during school and make life
Right.
easy. And I'm instantly like, "Oh my gosh, it's a scam." And she's like, "What do you mean, mom? It came to my, my
Sure.
school email and he's an alumni." And you search the name and that person is an alumni of the school, but they so often do copycat,
Right.
right? Right? So, that was a hard conversation, and you could see how the younger generation can be as trusting as well.
Right.
And she obviously I said, did you send him any personal information?" And trying to have that conversation with so many people, my own child, right?
Right.
When I do this for a living.
Somebody who really values your opinion is still, not wanting to hear your opinion at the same time, you know
Sure,
what I mean?
sure. I mean, she obviously
Sure.
took my advice, but, it was really hard because for her, she was like, "Well, I did everything and it checked out." And then you have to remind them, like, if you're going to work for someone, there's going to be documentation that you need to fill out,
Right.
and there's going to be a formal process
Right.
to that employment agreement,
Right.
not just, "Oh, hey, here you go, I'm sending you a check."
Yeah.
But so many don't even remember that formal process anymore,
Right.
which is how they can fall into, the scams as well and giving out their social security number. Like
Right.
if they tend to target the younger ones to see if they're going to get their social security number. And then they can go and do God knows what with their social security number. They can apply for loans.
Sure.
They can, apply for bank accounts to pass fraudulent checks through.
Right.
So it's a catch 22. You try to, you can lead a horse to water, but
Right.
you just never know. I mean, had I known about it in the beginning, I would have known to tell her to never even email that person back. But
Right.
by
But
the time you're involved, it's,
that's
3
just
steps
another
in.
another example of
Mhm,
just new scams all the time
mhm.
that it might not even be something that you're fully aware of as a scam. I mean, obviously, you'd recognize it's a scam, but it's not something that you would necessarily recognize right away. Maybe like you had to have more information from to figure that out. Um, it's a difficult thing because I would like to say that it's always, this is the problem and this is exactly how we are going to fix it every single time, but it's rarely ever a one size fits all solution. It's frequently, it's kind of fluid situation. Everything can change, from one day to the next of what they're trying to do.
100%.
One day they may be trying to get them to send the money via check. One day they may be trying to gather social security information for exactly what you said, that they're trying to open the bank accounts in her name so they can pass fraudulent checks through. And guess what? Those accounts go bad. It's bad for not them, right?
Right. Right. And that's why we always say, what do we always say, right? Make sure you lock your credit.
Right.
Doesn't matter at how old you are, lock your credit down. It might seem like a hassle now. You're creating a username and password with all 3 credit bureaus.
Right.
Keep your credit locked. It's a flick of a button when you need to purchase a car or if you're
Right.
going through a process to get a loan. You
Yep.
lock it and you unlock it.
Yeah, what credit report do you use? And then simply hit a button to unlock it.
Yep.
They run your credit, lock it back up. It's
Mm,
that simple.
yes, I lock your check systems.
Right.
Check systems is that bureau that banks or credit unions use to validate your worthiness to have a checking account or a savings account. I always tell people to make sure that's locked because then no one can open a bank account in your name without your information. I think the biggest thing that people always think is fraud's never going to happen to me.
Right.
And it's not if fraud is going to happen to you, it's when.
Yeah.
We have seen that.
I think a lot of people have the stance that I'm too smart for that to happen to me. I couldn't be ever be duped. And I do think that most people are too smart for it to happen again. But all it takes is 5 minutes of you not thinking 100%. And I think most people could agree that every once in a while they're, do something stupid, right?
Yeah,
Um, it's just
it's human
the
nature,
reality. Right.
right?
Exactly. So if they just catch you at the wrong time, for a few seconds, unfortunately, you could give out your social security number in a few seconds, right?
But it's also, our information is out there.
Sure.
There's been compromises from other companies.
Right.
So if that company's data is compromised, you have to take into consideration what information they have on you,
Sure.
right? So it's not so much always that, the fraudster, the scammer is going to call you. It's that if they're doing a data breach compromise, the fraudsters, to a larger organization, if your information's there, that's your information out into the wrong hands.
Right, and a lot of people, it's a easy way for them to let their guard down is when they hear some verifying information that they think, "Well, how else would they have it unless they're a legitimate company, right?" Um, and then it turns out they just have a small amount and they're verifying, they're filling out the rest of the letters of the alphabet, and all they had originally is ABC.
So let's talk a little bit about statistics. How often would you say we see people getting scammed? Or do you think people get scammed?
I mean, we probably deal with it, I mean, I would say a daily basis to some degree. Obviously, like, not including basic debit card fraud, because that's obviously every day, unfortunately. There's different I mean, it happens daily, it really depends on
Like the level of fraud,
wait,
right?
I'm drawing a blank, my bad.
Even though it happens daily, like it could be, this person's getting scammed. I mean, you're constantly, this, you and your team, you have the debit card fraud, you have the credit card fraud,
Right.
and you have the scams, and then the actual fraud of someone pretending to be someone that they're not.
Right.
So I think eh, I would say it's happening daily for sure.
Really depends on the because there are sometimes the larger ones, that you're telling other people about, maybe at work, that it's, a very juicy story, I would describe it as. They probably happen like once every 3, 4 months. And those are
Sure.
few and far between, but like just a basic scam, I mean, that certainly happens probably at least weekly. Just one of the basic scams that we kind of outlined, whether
Mhm.
it's a romance one. And it all comes down to people wanting to believe something is true that's not true, right? And people maybe not having that person in their life who's saying like, "Hey, I don't know about that," right? Like, people need that person to keep them in check, right? That they can just bounce things off, and whether it's being told, "Hey, you're being an idiot," or "Hey, you're doing this or that," it doesn't matter. People need that person that can tell them, like, steer them back in the right direction, right?
Right. We all do.
Right.
100%. How often, so in two different scenarios, so with fraud, how often would you say people get their money back?
I mean, it really depends. Card fraud, if it's something that um I would say card fraud, you're definitely more likely to get back basic card fraud. With like the check scams, once you're buying a gift card, you're never getting that money back. There's nothing, just as a financial organization, there's nothing that we could do. If you buy a gift card with cash at, whatever drugstore, and then you send that gift card to somebody else, like, nothing we can really do to reimburse you. We have those people come in every now and again that, they've purchased $3,000 of gift cards, and they've realized after the fact that it's fraud, and they feel bad for them. But unfortunately, there's nothing, because
Right.
it's not a transaction that we did directly. And once you buy a gift card and you send that elsewhere, and it's gone. I mean, there's disclosures on the back of the card. A lot of the stores, the cashiers are very good at telling them, like, "Hey, was this something? What are we buying all these gift cards for?" Kind of another break that they have to say, "Yep, I'm doing this for that reason." And sometimes at that time, they just don't want to admit that, what they're doing it for. They create that sense of fear. Like we have the ones that, uh, could be that you have child, porn on your computer and you need to send money to this. We have that sort of thing, and that's a uneasy conversation, to have with somebody, honestly, because I understand the if you don't really have that, how do you know somebody can't put that on your computer, right?
Right, especially when you've let them take
Right.
control of your computer. I
Right, so
think
you're helpless at a certain point.
right, and people panic right away,
Right.
right? Especially when you've let someone take control of your computer, and you know, those are the bigger ones that we see too, where they say, "Oh, well, in order to get you this refund, we need you to log into your computer," and so they've logged into the computer with you so they can see exactly how much you have in your bank account,
Right.
and then they tell you, "Oh, enter $700 to get your refund," and it's really them under
Right.
the manipulative controls, punching in $7,000 when they've really moved, $7,000 from your savings to your checking,
Right.
but
Or
you just look at your checking and see the $7,000 balance, you don't really realize the transaction. Um, we have seen that happen a a lot,
right.
but the good part is we've been able to catch it,
Mhm.
for the most part. Some
Sure.
firms we can if they don't wanna give us the information,
Right.
but we are also seeing where, the fraudsters will come in and they will direct someone that they need to stay on the phone while they're in the bank.
Right.
That's control, that's a manipulative, measure. So if someone's ever telling you, "Oh, I have to stay on the phone with you while you're going into your bank to take care of a transaction that happened,"
That's
that should be a
pretty large red flag.
yeah, red flag.
Yeah, I mean, and then some of those people, when you eventually convince them, "Hey, we're your bank, we're on your side," like
Yeah,
this person just started calling you yesterday. Um, Even then, they'll have a hard time believing us, and then they'll usually have that moment where it could be a couple days later, it could be a week later, where they'll be like, "Oh no," and they'll call you back, and they'll be like, "You guys had my best interest at heart," and it's like, yes,
yeah,
as your bank, we're not trying to, scam you. We're not trying to make life harder for you. If you have to change an account number because you're getting scammed, that's ultimately a small headache compared to what it could be.
right.
And I think that that's something that people kind of take for granted is, oh, I have to deal with the headache of getting a new card or getting a new account number. But
Change
and
my direct deposit.
yeah,
We hear that all the
in the
time.
grand scheme of things, that's kind of small potatoes for what it could be.
Right, your
Um,
life savings could be taken away from
right.
you in a matter of minutes.
Right, there's people whose credit is just
Ruined.
goes from a 800 credit score to, 600 in
Correct.
months, unfortunately.
So let's talk really quickly red flags, right? The sense of urgency, we've talked about that. The having to stay on the phone with you, anytime someone is calling you from an organization and telling you that you're going to get a refund or you need to do this because they've overpaid you and you have to pull cash out for a courier.
Right.
Those are all red flags. Can you think of I mean those are just a few. There's so many different red flags.
Typos in any kind of correspondence, if there's typos, that's always a red flag. If they're from an organization, like for us, for example, we'd be at familyfirstny.com email address. Um, if somebody's sending you from at gmail.com, at yahoo.com, that's not coming from us because, we are all in most organizations are going to have a similar thing. It's going to be at their institution. Another thing we see along the same lines as government entities, they're always going to be .gov, right?
Right, and not .go.
Yeah,
Here, we've seen that where they honestly legitimately thought that this email was from a FBI agent and it was FBI.go.
right.
Or, just those little typos that you wouldn't really will catch, but someone in the moment might miss.
Right, if somebody's coaching you on the phone, like, "Hey, you just need to click this, this, and this," and you look at the email real quick, you might not see that, but us, we have the luxury of, kind of looking at it from not being under the same pressure
Sure.
and, having experience doing it. So it's kinda difficult, and I truly sympathize with people who are involved in scams because you know, I I think that they always feel like they're an idiot for falling for something, and that's not necessarily always the case. Don't get me wrong, there are people that I feel like, it seems like, they'll get scammed tomorrow too if you
Right,
catch
this
me.
repeat offender.
Right,
There's
right, and unfortunately, once you do get scammed, those it snowballs and you just continually get the messages because they know you've been scammed. Your information gets sold and it gets sold to this person, it gets sold to this person, and they know you're kind of a mark, unfortunately.
and we tell that to people all the time,
Right.
"You've fallen for this, they've gotten this amount of money from you. Pause. I need you to take a breath. Don't click on links." We tell them our response to a fraud is yes or no. There's never going to be a link to click on. We're never gonna pick up the phone, after hours and call you. If it's a text message, it's a text message. It's a yes or no. You might get We would rather have them hang up on us,
Right.
right? And call us back at the number you know. We always tell that to everybody. Hang up. If it's a number you don't recognize, it's okay. Hang up, call us back at the number you know us to be at. Don't hit redial 'cause there's spoofing of numbers. We
Right.
didn't even talk about that, but,
Oh,
there is a
spoofing,
lot of
yeah.
number spoofing. Um, so I think it's really just having we go back to having that trusted source, whether it's a family member, a friend, a neighbor, or just picking up the phone and calling us.
Right. I mean, it wouldn't bother me at all. Somebody who works with fraud on a daily basis, if I were to call somebody and questioning somebody about a transaction, but they're more familiar with working with somebody at a different bank, it wouldn't bother me at all if they called that person to ask if it makes sense, right?
Right, sure.
Which is largely the difference between, if you're being scammed or not. Like the person, if you're being scammed, is not going to say, "Hey, you can't actually call," or "Why don't you go ahead and call somebody else just to make sure?" Whereas, we're going to say, "Hey, do whatever
Yeah,
it needs to
call
make
whoever
you
you
feel
need to.
comfortable." Right.
Sure. So, Joe, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for coming here and spending some time with me talking about fraud. I hope that some of the takeaways can be that anybody watching this podcast or, seeing any of our clips, obviously reach out. Reach out. Find a trusted family member, friend, someone at your financial institution that you trust. Um, Take our information, do your own research. Don't we don't want you to, obviously panic or fall for anything. Um,
Yeah, I mean, to reiterate your point, having the trusted source is the most important person. It does not matter who that is. It could be your neighbor, somebody who rides the bus with you. It literally does not matter. It's somebody that you can, hey, like if I said, "Hey, Brenda, I got a scenario for you," you'd give me your opinion on it, good, bad, and different. You would give me your opinion without the bias of, you were involved in a conversation prior, right? It would
sure.
just be a completely one-off situation, and like you said, call your bank if you have questions, if you're not sure, even if you think, God, this is stupid, call your bank. They hire people. We have people employed that will answer questions. That's what they're paid to do. So call your bank, even if you just want an opinion. They'll if we can't help you, we would tell you we can't help you.
And go to the FTC website. They have a running update of the different types of scams that they're seeing. It doesn't hurt the more you know,
Right.
farther you go, right?
Right.
It's an old cliche, but it's really true. If you know what's out there, um, as far as scams and, they are ever changing.
Mhm.
So what we talk about today, there's going to be something new tomorrow,
Right.
indefinitely. But if you have that person to say, hey, and I'm a big proponent, and you hear me say it all the time, go with your gut. If your gut is telling you something is not right, go with your gut. Pause, talk to that person.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.